It is not fair to students who do everything right to get saddled with debt that they have to pay off, not just for years, but in some cases decades. We can do better than that.
The president went on to criticize Congress, which just hours earlier had voted down another student loan bill. Senator Ed Markey looked on as a bill proposed by fellow Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren failed on a procedural vote. Warren's bill would have allowed some graduates to refinance their student loans at lower rates. While Washington continues to argue over how to help families pay for college, there's no disputing the rising debt load facing students. According to a new report, 70% of students graduate with substantial loans amounting to almost $30,000 on average. That can mean years of monthly payments of around $300 a month. And that has some critics calling even the modest loan reform measures insufficient. My next guest should know. Mike Wasserman is the executive director of Bottom Line, a nonprofit dedicated to improving college graduation rates of low-income students. Welcome to Greater Boston.
Thank you.
Were you discouraged by this is a Senate vote. Everybody kind of thought it was going to go through the Senate, but didn't even make it there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone is too surprised about, the inaction on the political realm. So, I think, anytime you can lower interest rates for students, it's going to be good for students and families. But I think that, beyond what they're talking about in Washington, I think there are other things that, that discussion is missing. I think there's a kind of core elements that are not being addressed around the cost of higher education overall, educating families and students on the front end about making a better buying decision so that they're not going to the schools where they end up with $80,000, $100,000 in debt, even the 30 or 40 that is the average.
I'm surprised the average is that low. I mean, if you pay full tuition, you're up to about $64,000 now, $64,000. So, I mean, I don't know how people come up with that. How come they're only $30,000 in debt? I'm serious.
Yeah, I mean, I think you find students that make a good decision, that find one that is a good, responsible fit for them. And so you can go to school and pay very little. Mm-hmm. If you go to a state university, you work part-time, especially for low-income, first-generation students like the ones Bottom Line work with, you can leave with very little debt. And so you have that on one end of the scale. And so you do have a lot of students that, well beyond the 30,000 are 50, 70,000 in debt with just an undergraduate degree, which is crazy. I mean, that's just not worth what a degree is.
And I mean, there's low income and then there's the vast majority in some kind of middle range.
Right.
And these people often don't qualify for any kind of assistance whatsoever. So these are the people who are really teetering on the brink of, hundreds of thousands.
Right. Right, absolutely. I mean, I think whatever financial bracket you are in, students and families have options. You don't need to go to the school that is $50,000 a year. There is, the $23,000 option, the $20,000 option. So, one issue is college is getting too expensive. Mm-hmm. The cost of college is far outpacing inflation, and that's something that the politicians don't seem to be addressing.
What is going to change this? I mean, you've got so many people now defaulting on these loans, something like 40% of them. I mean, I've always said that some kind of a scale, college education should be tax deductible to whoever pays it, whether it's the parents or the kid. But why is Congress so loath to look at some kind of a structure that would make that there would be an incentive for everybody to want to go if they could make some of it somehow tax deductible?
Yeah, I mean, so right now what you have is that student loan interest is tax deductible.
I understand that, but you've already spent the money.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think what the president is trying to do, regardless of the bill, his work to say that more students with loans can cap their payments at 10% of income. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that is getting to the right point, which is that higher education should lead to a career, and you should be able to pay for what you get. Right. And so saying, if you go to college and you get into a profession that is nonprofit or serving the public, that, the government should somehow support that. But even if a college promises you something, this high paying job, and it doesn't come through, is there a way to make sure that you don't, you're not totally crippled by that mm-hmm. debt? I think he's getting there with that. The problem is that should the government be the one that's kind of taking on those irresponsible decisions when you have a lot of colleges with high price tags that aren't delivering.
How does your group do this? Are you steering kids away from colleges where they're never going to be able to repay these debts? And if so, isn't that kind of too bad? I mean, if you said, well, you're not going to be able to go to Princeton because of these factors, but you could maybe go to Westfield State. I mean.
So we definitely are moving students towards affordable options, and I think it's important to look at the different competitiveness of schools, right? So a student that goes to Princeton or an Ivy League school or very competitive colleges, those schools have large endowments. They're able to offer need-based aid. So whatever place you're at, they're trying to make it work for you. It's really more the students that are not at that top level, right? I mean, people talk about the cost of Harvard. The truth is Harvard has very generous financial aid because they have so much money in the bank. But it's the student choosing between UMass Amherst and a small liberal arts school. And in that decision, we do move students towards the cheaper option. And the reality is that if you just kind of chase your dream school, I think that's what 20 years ago, 30 years ago, people said, just go wherever you want to and make it work. The reality is it doesn't pay for itself anymore. And often, I mean, we talk about the students graduating with a lot of debt. You have a lot of students that halfway through college aren't able to pay anymore, and so they're leaving with debt and no degree. And so, I think we have to move away from this kind of idealized version and say go wherever, and really think more about it as a consumer decision. You make a buying choice.
All right, Mike Wasserman, pleasure to have you. Thanks for your insights.
Thank you.